I recently watched Fellini's La Dolce Vita, and I really couldn't find a comprehensive breakdown of the movie online. It's arguably one of Fellini's most popular films, but if you've seen it, it might have left you a little put off. It's one of those film snob movies that people say they liked but can never really articulate why they liked it. And to be honest, it took me some time sitting with it before I decided to take a crack at what is widely considered a masterpiece of Italian cinema. Hey, I'm Mike, I studied film, I work in TV, and if you love movies as much as I do, hit that subscribe button and get notified when new content's posted. So let's talk about La Dolce Vita. If you're going to watch any Fellini film, it's either going to be La Strada, La Dolce Vita, or 8½. And those three films represent three very different periods in Fellini's career. La Strada was early on in his career and still has elements of the Italian neo-realism movement that Fellini came up in. Strictly speaking, Fellini was not considered to be a neo-realist director. But it's where he cut his teeth. He worked for neo-realistic directors like Roberto Rossellini. Without going too deep into it, neo-realism sprouted up after World War II in Italy and dealt with themes of injustice, poverty, an uncertain future, things like that. Most neo-realist films took place in real locations, mostly because Rome's main studio, Cinecittà, was badly damaged during the war. La Strada, early in Fellini's career, is most like an Italian neo-realist film, shot all on location with directionless protagonists struggling with making a living and worrying about their future. Then there's La Dolce Vita, which brings us to the glitz and glamour of 1960s Rome. It marked a distinct change in Fellini's, well, everything. At the time, it was condemned by the Catholic Church for its depiction of Rome's lascivious nightlife, but by today's standards, it's pretty tame. It's shot mostly on sets, not on location, with the exception of a few scenes, like the famous one in Trevi Fountain. The Trevi Fountain scene has been referenced countless times in movies and ad campaigns over the years. You probably have seen the images and not known what they're referencing. That's how much a part of our culture that scene has become. Besides the Trevi Fountain scene and a few others, Fellini shot everything else on a soundstage to show the artifice of Rome at the time, the shallowness, the thin veneer of the Roman nightlife. La Dolce Vita follows Marcello, a tabloid reporter, and his photographer, Paparazzo. It's where we get the term paparazzi, from that character, Paparazzo. Marcello is a frustrated artist. He writes tabloid pieces for a living, but his dream is to write a novel, to become an artist. What you'll notice first about La Dolce Vita is that it's told in a very strange style. It's widely accepted that there are 7 vignettes. They all star Marcello, but other than that, none really seem to connect. There are snapshots of Marcello's life. We meet characters, some of whom never return, storylines that begin and never fully resolve. La Dolce Vita is a tough watch until you realize that Fellini is giving us tabloid snapshots of one man's life. Each vignette is akin to an article in a tabloid magazine. It's fleeting and temporary. In today's news cycle, how often is a news story plastered all over the media one day and then gone the next, leaving you asking, whatever happened to those people? How did that story end? That's what Fellini's doing here. And if you've ever tried to write a screenplay, making a structure like that work, to tell a narrative story like that, is beyond impossible. But Fellini manages to tell a cohesive story in disjointed parts. What I love so much about La Dolce Vita is that it's a beautifully shot film about human depravity, the hedonistic nature of Rome's nightlife. It's a glamorously shot film about a guy struggling with doing something meaningful with his life, but his job is to follow different groups of socialites back to their mansions to drink and dance and screw. All throughout the film, there are performances. There's a ton of them, including a scene at the Cha-Cha Club with a sad clown type. And in the last vignette, when the group forces a woman to perform a striptease. Performance is a big theme in La Dolce Vita because it's what Marcello is doing. He's performing. He's not being true to himself. That is until the end, until the scene with the striptease. That's when it's all laid bare for him, and he finally gives in and announces that he has abandoned his novel, abandoned his dreams of becoming an artist, and is becoming a talent agent or a publicist, which is like the puppet becoming a puppet master. It's interesting to think about. Fellini, coming from a neo-realist background, making a Hollywood-style film about unsuccessfully trying to find your true voice is simply amazing. Someone else might have stripped that artifice away and shot La Dolce Vita in a neo-realist style to really make the point. But what is the point? It's that Marcello fails. He gives in to the hedonistic lifestyle. He loses. Was Fellini feeling untrue to his artistic sensibilities? Was he feeling the pressure to make commercial films and this was his reaction? To give the people what they want, but to hide this frustrated artist character in plain sight? I think of La Dolce Vita like a diamond with many facets. No matter how you look at it, you find some kind of meaning and something different. If you were to look at it through the lens of Marcello's many love interests in the film, you might say he doesn't know what he wants in a mate. We first meet Maddalena, the wealthy heiress. He sleeps with her, but she isn't interested in anything long-term. In fact, there's a scene later in the film where he wants to spend time with her, but can only communicate with her through one of those whisper walls. He's unable to speak to her. He's unable to communicate to her his real feelings. He tries to tell her something, but she vanishes with another man. Then there's his fiancée, Emma, who he must care for when she overdoses, and who's overly doting on him, almost like a mother would be in a scene later on. I'm thinking of the scene when she's forcing sandwiches and bananas on him while they're driving. It's a little odd, but put into a broader context, Fellini's trying to tell us that Emma is a motherly figure, but one who Marcello also must attend to. They have a big fight at one point, and he leaves her on the side of the road just to return and pick her up after dawn. We're going to get back to that. Dawn's another theme I want to talk about. Emma is the opposite of Maddalena. She's overly clingy, overly needy. Then there's Sylvia, the Swedish-American actress who Marcello babysits through their nighttime romp through Rome and eventually into that iconic scene in Trevi Fountain. She's beautiful, blonde, something every man should want, but she's vapid and hollow. Then there's Fanny, the dancer at the Cha-Cha Club, who ends up going off with Marcello's father, of all people. I could do an entire sidebar about how he wants to spend more time with his father, but his father either pushes him away or is unavailable to him. And then there's the young girl, Paola, who shows up while he's trying to write his novel at the Seaside Cafe. And before you get all crazy about her age, I think she represents innocence. There's nothing in the film that insinuates that Paola is anything to Marcello except the representation of innocence, or a simpler time. She's the last one we see at the end of the movie when Marcello decides to give up becoming a novelist and announces that he's taking the position of a publicist. He says goodbye to her. He's saying goodbye to his innocence, to his dream of becoming an artist, a novelist. You could look at La Dolce Vita in terms of the paparazzi. In some scenes, the paparazzi are covering a story that's unfolding in front of them. In others, they're creating a story out of nothing at all. In another scene, they're being manipulated. I'm thinking of the scene where the kids see the Madonna and send the paparazzi on a wild goose chase as they claim to see the Madonna all over. And I haven't even gotten to the symbolism of the 7 vignettes. Like 7 deadly sins, 7 religious sacraments, 7 virtues, 7 days of creation. You literally could read La Dolce Vita in any way you want. Then there's the theme of dawn running through the film also. We are with Marcello through several sunrises. In a movie that a lot of people claim is about the glamorous Roman nightlife, to follow through to the sunrise, serving as a slap in the face, exposing the indulgent, empty disillusionment of that lifestyle, is frankly brilliant. La Dolce Vita won the Palme d'Or at the 1960 Cannes Film Festival, and Fellini was nominated for the Oscar for Best Director, for Best Original Screenplay, and for Best Costumes in Black and White. Yes, there were separate categories for black and white and color costumes back then. Costumes was the only category it won that year. It was up against West Side Story and all the other categories. It is widely considered as a masterpiece of Italian cinema, and I would say it's one of Fellini's best, but if you haven't seen La Strada or 8½, I would absolutely get on that. Fellini is just proving again and again that he's painting with oils while everyone else is coloring with crayons. Anyway, those are my thoughts on La Dolce Vita, and since this is in no way the final word on the film, I would love to read your thoughts on La Dolce Vita in the comments below. As always, film is about community. I'm Mike, and I love movies.